All right, so we're coming off the weekend of the DNC convention. It was held in Chicago, Illinois. Numbers USA took a camera crew up there and interviewed black residents of the city about their thoughts on illegal immigration. So I figured I'd do a reaction video to this and to see what they have to say. Let's kind of jump into it because I think it's should be interesting.
Democratic Party, has an agenda behind bringing immigrants over.
I am Andre Barnes with Numbers USA in Chicago during the DNC. We're here to hear the stories from the people who are impacted by the immigrants being bused into their neighborhoods. And what we want to do is tell the stories of the people that have been affected. When you hear people say that we should be softer on border security, what do you have to say about that?
We should be softer?
When they say that we should be welcoming to people that are coming in illegally and getting all these benefits, what do you have to say to that?
Well, first of all, the people coming here illegally, so that's a crime. We need to be harder on immigration, not softer.
Can you tell me about your neighborhood and what you've seen living here in Chicago?
It's just been a disaster. They started off putting the immigrants over in the police station. And as they started to move them out of the police station, they stealthily started to put them in our neighborhoods. Well, the neighborhood didn't want them. The residents, the citizens, we pushed back, but the deal was already done. And so they were bringing in a lot of military-aged men into the community. I mean, we're not blind, we're not stupid, we're not obtuse. We know what's going on.
Yeah, and she just made a great point here. So she's exposing the fact, and she's absolutely correct, that the vast majority of migrants that are coming to the United States, they're not seeking asylum. They don't have a valid claim for refugee status or asylum status. That's why the vast majority of them, I believe at 85% rate, had their asylum claims denied. The vast majority are economic migrants. And I understand if you want to come to the United States to get a better life and pursue economic opportunities, try to find a job and send money back home through remittances, et cetera. I understand that. But again, in those cases, the best thing to do would be to come the right way and come legally, because you're not going to get a lot of sympathy here in the U.S. if your first act upon reaching U.S. soil is committing a federal level felony.
But unfortunately, the people who run this city, they don't care what the people think. So they started putting them into quiet residential neighborhoods like Washington Park, middle-class black neighborhoods. We're still pushing back. We don't want them here. The crime rate has gone up since they've been here. That's a fact. Nobody wants to talk about it, but we live it every day.
What policies would you like to see in place that would limit the amount of people that are there?
Well, listen, there are policies on the book in Congress already. They need to enforce the laws that are already on the books. These people are here illegally. Again, they're not seeking asylum. If they were seeking asylum, they would have gone to the first country that would have granted them asylum, which would have been Mexico. What I would like to see them do, if they're here illegally, they need to go back to their country of origin, and that's immediately.
So what she's referencing here is not even just her opinion. This is a provision under federal law. So there is a case that there's a case that the Biden administration is litigating right now, because they want to push forward this asylum program for spouses of people who are U.S. citizens, but the spouse is an illegal alien. So last Friday, a group of 16 Republican state attorneys general filed a lawsuit. And I think yesterday a court ruled that he sided with the attorneys general in that it is likely that the case is going to be ruled in their favor. And that the provisions as outlined in that particular legal filing explain that under federal law, if you are here illegally, if you want to become a legal naturalized U.S. citizen, it is required that, unfortunately, the way the law is written, that it cannot happen as long as you're residing in the United States. So you do have to leave. So this isn't her personal position. This is the position of the federal government. And again, I'm not making a case for or against it, but the easiest thing to do, again, I keep coming back to this, which is going to be a common sense answer that a lot of people aren't going to like. Come here legally in the first place and you don't have to worry about it.
We have no allegiance to these folks, okay? We don't care where they're from.
Does the Democratic platform seem to satisfy your needs as far as what you'd like to see with our immigration policy?
What platform is that? They don't seem to have a platform. They seem to have open borders. Everybody can come here. Listen, people live in their homes. You have a home or you have an apartment. Do you have a front door on your home?
Yes, I do.
Do you have a back door?
Yes, I do.
Are they locked?
They're locked.
Are you locking because you're racist?
No.
You're locking because?
I'm protecting my 4 children that I have at home.
Exactly. Same thing with our borders, okay? It's not.
The same thing. Yep. I mean, you don't lock your doors because you hate your neighbors. You do it because you love your family and you want to protect the people who are inside. And I get it. The vast majority of people coming across the border are not criminals, but there are people who wish to do us harm. And with the system we have right now, we don't have a way to vet all those people to determine who is and who isn't a threat if they're sneaking across the border. So, again, she's absolutely right here.
Nothing to do with racism. We have to protect our sovereignty.
Yeah.
We have to protect the citizens here. We have to protect our homeland. And so we have to close those borders.
Absolutely.
By any means necessary. Building a wall is an excellent idea. Look at the DNC convention. They built all kinds of walls of security. They have all kinds of police. They wanted to defund the police. They didn't want police protection. But listen, when it comes to them, it's always hypocrisy, built into it.
Why is it that you get to come here? You ain't put no money on the books, no taxes, bled no wars. You've contributed nothing intellectually here. And you get to come here, you get all these resources that the average American can't. What about our homeless children?
What about our veterans?
And she's right here. And Chicago is not a good area if you are a melanated individual, let's say. As of, I believe, earlier this year, the black poverty rate in Chicago was more than 27%. So, I mean, that's 3 times higher than the poverty rate for white Americans. So people in that city are indeed struggling. At some point during the last 3 years, the state provided up to $9,000 in rental assistance to migrants, money that was not going to local residents to help them obtain houses. And that was paid out over a period of 6 months, I believe. Last year, Mayor Brandon Johnson went to Washington, D.C. to beg the Biden administration for $5 billion so that they could handle this migrant crisis that was created by their own policies. I mean, I thought you were a sanctuary city, bro. So it makes no sense. And I can see why these residents are furious, because they have concerns that they have been trying to get addressed for decades, and it's been falling on deaf ears. And now we have people who aren't even legally supposed to be in the country, and everybody's rolling out the red carpet to take care of them and prioritize them over city residents who have been there and have been struggling, have been legally in the United States as citizens. It's wild to watch.
This is the game right now. Wow. So all of those things are connected, and it starts by not giving the children the resources that they need, because you're stealing the money.
So you have these immigrants coming in. If you need to flee where you live, yeah, come in. But don't neglect your own children.
Yeah.
You're giving money. All of a sudden, you come up with all this money. You found all this money, to throw at their needs and stuff. Our kids need a line in these bills or whatever. There needs to be a line in there that at-risk children get the same type of accommodations, modifications, and monies needed to help them access the curriculum too. Okay?
Absolutely.
That's not an unreasonable request. I mean, again, we're providing billions of dollars. One of the things I always talk about when it comes to addressing some of America's more pressing problems, like rampant homelessness for vets and non-vets alike, but there's a number of things. It's always an economic reason. We don't have the money for it. Yet for some reason, when it comes to this particular subject, they always manage to find money to fund these programs for illegal aliens. They're paying NGOs $1.6 billion a year to basically bring people here and subvert federal law in the process. The total cost, and this was as of last year, of illegal migration to the United States is about $161 billion annually. So and that number is only going to go up because since the Biden administration has been in office, there's been over 10 million border encounters. So who knows what that number is actually going to spiral to. Those numbers come from Fair Immigration. I know there's some other organizations that have come up with some much higher figures. I'd prefer to be a little bit more conservative in my estimates, and then Fair does good work, so I have no reason not to believe their numbers. But the lowball number headed into the Biden administration was about $161 billion a year. There are other impacts as well. This impacts you as far as your kid's education. If you're sending your kid to school, they're going to have to, schools now have to teach up to 25 different languages to accommodate all the kids that are coming from all these different countries. They have a fiduciary responsibility to do so. That's a ruling from the United States Supreme Court in the 1980s. They don't have the option to say no. Also, your medical costs are higher. If somebody skips out on an emergency room bill, guess what? That's going to impact your cost. So there are all sorts of ways that this is impacting us that we don't necessarily think about on a day-to-day basis. And I think it would behoove us to, on all counts, for all parties involved, people within the United States, the people who are legitimately seeking some sort of protection and fleeing their own homes, it would help us to streamline this process somehow and figure out a way that's fair to actually help these people become legal citizens. But again, jumping the border and cutting the line and costing us $1 trillion every 4 years is not the answer.
Not leave our American children out. Everybody says that the Democratic Party, has an agenda behind bringing immigrants over because they can no longer depend on the black vote. So they're trying to replace our votes.
It's part of the reason.
Immigration, period, is a problem and has always harmed the freedmen. Illegal immigration is crushing the whole country. Stop saying, I'm okay with the immigration. Speak the truth.
When you think about what's going on in the United States of America right now and in Chicago with mass immigration, what are 3 words that come to mind that for you?
Very, very angry.
Tell me more about that.
I'm going to put this at the feet of the Democratic Party, the Biden administration, because we've never seen a surge in immigration like we have seen under this administration. It's all by design. It's deliberate. The Democratic Party realizes that the black vote is dwindling because the Democratic Party has not delivered for the black community in the way that the black community has delivered for the Democratic Party in terms.
Okay, so without getting into motive, I think it is fair to say that this is a deliberate effort. One of the first things that President Joe Biden did when he got in office, the day he was sworn in on January 20th, 2021, was he signed a series of executive orders undoing every Trump era policy that was designed to limit border incursions on the southern border of the United States. There were at least 3 executive orders that he signed to reverse Trump era policies. And that's when this crisis began to spiral out of control. I mean, that is a deliberate act. We had Remain in Mexico in place and a number of other provisions. They got rid of it. So, yes, there is at least some sort of quasi-open borders agenda that these people are enacting. You can't really argue against it because, again, these are policies that were enacted. There are documents that were signed. This has been widely reported. So she's on the money here.
The votes. And they realize that. So what do? They go around the world and they open up these borders and they let people come from around the world, poor, vulnerable people from around the world come into this country, and it was very strategic. You let them go into cities like New York. You let them come into cities like Chicago. You let them come into cities that where there's a large black population. Now, they're all over the city of Chicago, but the majority of them now in Chicago are on the west and the south side of Chicago. Poor neighborhoods that are struggling, that have been struggling for a long, long time. So you bring these people into Hyde Park, you bring these people into South Shore, they put them in a hotel literally right across the street from me. They're paying no rent. Their food is being provided for. They don't even make their beds. They have a maid to go and make their beds every day. How do I know? Because I live on the 25th floor and I can look right down on that hotel every day, every night, and I see what's going on. We don't want them in our community. Let them go back to where they came from, because it's my position that if you have a problem with your country, then you stay. And you make it better by fighting that government, making your government do what it needs to do by its people, because that's what we do in this country. That's what I've been doing all of my life. I don't have any place to run to. America is my home. It's my country. We built it.
When the buses started rolling in, a lot of the American citizens, black citizens, did not realize what they were here for. But once that they got here, they started to bring them into the black community. And we started to do research, and that's when I found out that it was Kamala Harris that opened the borders up in California and allowed all the gangs, the Mexican gangs, to come across. And they took Compton and all the other black cities, similar to what we're seeing across the United States today.
What kind of legislation would you like to see? We mentioned to you E-Verify, being able to check if people have the right to work here. Do you think that would be helpful?
I think that would benefit all Americans with E-Verify, for the simple fact is we need some type of verification system for people who are in this country. You know, we've talked about at least, they want to say it's 20 million illegals have came in.
The most recent estimate that I've read in the news was 12 million from this crisis situation.
Okay, so real quick about E-Verify, I have seen some information that suggests that E-Verify is actually going to be a tool that's weaponized against conservatives to get them to support digital IDs, which are sort of a precursor to moving us toward a Chinese-style social credit score system. So they're going to use this issue of illegal immigration to get conservatives on board with this E-Verify. Then it's going to be a Trojan horse, and then it's going to be used to back this digital ID system that conservatives vehemently oppose. So for that reason, I personally can't get behind E-Verify, but I think as we head forward and these types of policies start to get discussed a little bit more as potential solutions, it's something good to keep in mind.
Let me say this. Legislation would be fine, because we do need the structure.
Right.
The legislation is already there with the immigration laws.
Yes. Right.
So we don't need to do that again.
Right.
That's what the Liberal Party is doing. They're making us think that there's no structure because they violated the immigration laws by opening our borders and allowing these people to come. Absolutely. So I would say with the sheriff, with the citizens, that they could shut the sanctuary cities down and start deporting all illegals who have not come to this country and been vetted and went through the system.
I am here in Chicago during the DNC, and as you see behind me, it says, "Come bring on the benefits." Well, what about the benefits for Americans? People need to know how Americans are being affected by immigration. Let's bring the benefits for Americans. Let's get the policies that we need on the table so that Americans can benefit. We want sensible immigration policies, and we can push our elected officials to do that today. I'm Andre Barnes with Numbers USA, and we're here in Chicago.
Andre, good video, my man. I mean, spot on. I mean, I think it's an important conversation to have. We've obviously been having it because we've sort of been forced into this conversation. As far as the residents of Chicago, though, I mean, I think it's a couple things we got to keep in mind. These policies are set by your local government. We talk about who we're going to elect for president or to Congress, but all of these things are happening because of what's happened at the state level and at the city level and at the county level. So if you want to change your neighborhoods, you're going to have to put some different people in office who have different values, who aren't going to have you living in a sanctuary city, for instance. Just to give you one example, and I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm an independent. I'm not a Republican. I'm not Democrat. But Chicago has not had a Republican mayor since 1931. Might have something to do with it. Democrats have single party rule, and they have a supermajority in Illinois. And definitely in Chicago, that is where the legendary Democratic machine is. So it may behoove people in that area to consider other options. And on the flip side of that as well, Republicans love to talk about the violence in Chicago and all the things that are happening and legal immigration problems and talking about the $1 billion budgets for, again, foreign nationals that shouldn't be here. But if Republicans don't give people an option and there's no conservative option on the ballot because Republicans are either too afraid or unwilling to go to these areas, then these people won't have another option. So it's sort of a two wings of the same bird, right? Both things need to happen. So keep that in mind. But those are my thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.